Hi, how are you? Eric Gros-Dubois. We're going to do a quick 5-minute video, maybe a little bit less. And so here's the fact pattern. A group of members of a not-for-profit company here in Florida come to me, and there's a brewing dispute between the chairman and the other directors. And I put chairman in air quotes, and I'll tell you why. And so they said, Eric, what do we do? And I'm like, well, first things first, do you have copies of the Articles of Incorporation? That's how you start a not-for-profit corporation. It's also the same thing how you start a normal corporation. And they said no. And I said, okay, well, there's a chance that we can find them on the Secretary of State website. However, this company was so old that we'd have to literally request the paper files because they're not online digital PDF, like 2 clicks away and you can download it. So they said, well, okay, we'll see what we can do. And I said, okay, well, do you have bylaws? And they said, well, actually, we do have bylaws. And I said, okay, great, send them over to me. And that's where we always start when we're talking about a dispute between the people that either own a company or, in this case, a not-for-profit. There are no owners of a not-for-profit. That's one of the concepts behind it. However, in this particular organization, it had a board of directors. It had 12 directors. And so, sure enough, I pull out the bylaws. They're from 1985, and they are super vague. They don't talk at all about how votes are to be held. They don't talk about a quorum. They don't talk about how notice of a meeting is going to be had. They don't talk about majority, supermajority, which things are allowed to be handled just by the officers. The officers are usually the president, the secretary, and the treasurer. And so the president is the person who's nominated by the board of directors to handle the day-to-day. Well, what does that mean? Can the president go on his own and go rogue and sell the company? Probably not. But these would be normal things that we would put in the bylaws. They might be in older situations in the Articles of Incorporation, or if it's an LLC, they would be in a document we call either the Articles of Organization or in the operating agreement. Okay, so the point is, the first place we start is show me the documents. And they were missing one, so we don't know what's there. And in the other one, it really was not helpful. Going back to chairman, the word chairman was never used once in the bylaws. However, this person has just given himself the title chairman, which is nice, but it's just a word. And one thing we learn in the law is titles are meaningless. It's what the substance is behind them. So then step 2 is, okay, barring the documents. So either we have documents, we don't have documents, and if we do have documents, they either talk about this stuff or they don't. Then you have to look at the statute. And so there's 3 relevant statutes for the different types of companies, I should say. There's the for-profit corporate statute. So if this was the situation, if it was a for-profit corporation, I would go to that statute. Then there's the not-for-profit corporation statute, which is my story here. And then there would be the LLC statute. Now, you have to be specific. In this case, we're all talking about Florida. Every state has a separate statute for each of those things. So if this is a Delaware corporation, for-profit, we would go look at that statute. So I go to the Florida not-for-profit corporation statute, and if you go through it, obviously not all of it's relevant to this conversation, but certain parts are certainly relevant. How decisions are made, how you establish a quorum, how you do notice of meetings, who can decide to sell all the assets of the not-for-profit corporation, how they can distribute it, who they can distribute it to, who they can't. And almost everywhere in the statute, it'll say you can put whatever you want in your articles or in your bylaws. However, if you don't have anything, here's the default. And that's where we ended up, right? We ended up with the default. And the default, for what it's worth, in most situations, is a vote of a majority of the directors. So the chairman in my story, who is running around, he calls himself the chairman, he calls himself the CEO. None of these are defined terms in the corporate documents. And he has told everybody else, he's like, hey, I've decided I'm gonna sell everything and I'm gonna distribute it. And the majority of the directors are like, no, we don't agree. And he's like, yeah, well, you don't have any power, I'm doing it anyways. Well, going back to, first of all, the bylaws, he does not have that power. Second of all, the articles, maybe he does, we need to find them. And third of all, the statute, no, he does not have that power. Everything would have to be pursuant to a vote of the directors. And it's a vote of the directors, period, not a vote of the directors present at a meeting, which oftentimes you can have a regular meeting, and if, like, let's say 2/3 of the directors show up, and if that's a quorum, then maybe we can pull it off. Okay, so what's the moral of the story? You should always have really good corporate docs If you don't, you're going to default to the statute. You might be at the mercy of the legislature. So if you are part of an organization, whether it's for-profit, not-for-profit, or LLC, and you can't find those docs or you don't think they exist, it's a really good idea to put them in place. Thanks, everyone. If you have any questions or comments, leave one below, and I'm happy to talk to you about any of this. Thanks.